Well, greetings, everyone. It is the 6 o'clock hour, and once again, it is time for the political consciousness of West Coast Steeler fan, or are we have changed our name now to an Imperfect Union? Um, those of you, as I said, that like to read will know that this title has been taken from a paper that was written, I believe, back in the 1800s uh, after another election. But we have Luke back on the program. Luke, the last time we had you on the show, you were quarantined under the COVID. And I see you seem to be in good health there. Cheeks look a little rosy. You look in a little better spirits than the last time we saw you. So how's everything been?
It's been good. It's nice to be recovered from COVID. It's definitely something not to play with. But from that aspect, it's time to get back to work. Here in Indiana, we don't have any elections until 2022, but that doesn't mean that we can't start organizing now and start getting people prepared to, go after the electoral system in 2022.
So, of course, as everyone has seen since the last time we were on the show, since uh, January 6th, we've seen some of the actions that have been taken by the FBI and other agencies. We've also seen that we really don't have laws that protect us from domestic terrorism, like we have laws that protect us from international terrorism. Um, and I say that because if that had been a crowd of Muslims or people from an Arab land or Islamic, we would have had cries and military decrees and so forth and so on because we have laws that protect us from these things. Domestic terrorism, however, is very different. Now, to me, when you saw the Black Lives Matter movement, they were treated more like international terrorists in the sense that, they actually use weapons to repel these people. Now, when we saw a different mob, and this was a mob, I believe, according to some newscasts, there was a Black Lives Matter leader there. I'm not exactly sure of his role. He might have been a self-proclaimed Black Lives Matter, but that's a different story. I saw some South Vietnamese flags flying also in the crowd. Um, Not sure why they necessarily support someone that dodged the war, but anyway, this crowd was treated much differently than what we usually see. And this was in Washington, D.C. This wasn't Columbus, Ohio, or uh, uh, Atlanta or uh, Mississippi. This was actually in the capital. And Luke, I know that you're from a state that historically supports right wing extremism. What was, and you spoke about it a little bit when we were talking about your campaign. What was your reaction when you saw what was happening in the crowd, with this crowd? And do you think that this may actually uh, validate some of the things that we were talking about when we referred to the good old boys in Indiana?
My first thought was, shock and being appalled by it. We had armed protesters ransacking the U.S. Capitol building with legislators inside. As it's interesting they bring up the South Vietnamese flag being flown in the crowd. I'd also like to bring up the fact that someone was flying the flag of the country of Georgia, thinking it was the state of Georgia. We were not. Let me put it this way: the IQ level of the average insurrectionist that day was not that high. These were people that were radicalized online, radicalized by the words of now former President Trump, senators like Cruz and Howley, unfortunately, our own senator here in Indiana, the shame of Indiana, Mike Braun, and so many other extremist Republicans, elected officials that used their platform to get what they wanted. They wanted an angry mob to try and overthrow the election. And it's hard to say these words, but I'm glad Mike Pence did his job, which is really hard to praise anything that Mike Pence does. But they did not understand what they were doing with the insurrectionists. They were simply caught up in a emotional fury that was drummed up by these people that knew better. When you have Ted Cruz and Mo Brooks, Rudy Giuliani, Trump himself, his son, Trump Jr., out there in the crowd riling them up before they go down and storm the Capitol. They knew what they were setting their supporters up to do. And I'm hearing that there were a few staffers that quit that day from the White House because Trump himself was watching the coverage on TV, laughing and giddy about what was happening. They were just pawns in the system. And then to circle back around to what you're saying about the extremism and more or less, let's just call it the white supremacist militia that we have here in Indiana, I think we're seeing that they're not well organized enough to do anything on their own. If we continue to have members of Congress and highly elected officials stoking these fires of conspiracy theories and just extremism, they're going to continue to listen. But these groups they're not assembled enough on their own to continue to carry this out. You've got actual militias like there's a couple up in Michigan that tried to take over the state house, some of their extremism members that understand that's not the way you do it. That's not the way you get a message across. And I'm hoping that these QAnon right-wing parlor factions start to lose their ground now that Trump is not in office and he's also banned from social media.
Now, that's kind of interesting to me, the social media thing. What do you think about the fact that we have actually been able to? I'm going to use the word censure Trump, Parler, and some of these other extremist groups that are on. But I understand that the argument that how can you throw them off? And not throw off people like the ruler of Iran and things like that. Now, it's very interesting to me because I've been thrown off of Facebook, and it says because of community standards, but it never tells you what those community standards are. So I'm kind of wondering why, if I publish a picture of Trump, photoshopped, of course. Well, maybe not. I don't know. But anyway, with the hood on, I immediately have at least some time off from Facebook because I've published something that's racist. But Trump has been saying these things for 4 years. You wait until he has 20 days left in office, and all of a sudden he's censored. Now, I'm trying to, I understand he's the president, or he was the president and all that, but uh, I guess the point I'm trying to get to is it seems to be irregularities here. It doesn't seem like we're all operating on the same field. What's your thoughts on that? You can be tossed off of any of these social media platforms at the blink of an eye as an ordinary citizen, but after 3.5, almost 4 years, we praise social media now because all of a sudden it seems to have a conscience.
Well, I mean, if we want, if I'll be completely blunt. I think the reason why social media platforms were slow to censure or take any action against it was look at how many people would bring up just Twitter in itself. The daily conversation would be what Trump said on Twitter or what he said on this social media platform. Well, through that, those because that's a business. That's how it's run. The more clicks that those platforms get, the higher the price for the advertising. I really think that a lot of social media platforms, including Facebook and Twitter, use the Trump effect for their own benefit. The algorithms that they could throw high-priced advertisements into brought them more money, and if they were throwing it into a tweet that was getting 3, 4, 5 million views, that's going to break in the money for them, and that's how they used it. If you and I post something, our 30 people that look at it aren't going to be enough to pay the bills. So they're more likely to do it. They're more likely to censure those who don't bring in the money because it's a business. They're going to do what makes them the most money.
Okay. Once again, it comes down to that almighty dollar. I do understand that.
Unfortunately, I do want to go back to one other thing. I forgot to touch on. I always like bringing this up. You talked earlier about how Black Lives Matter movements were met with different responses than the white supremacy movements. I'm a big Rage Against the Machine fan, and Tom Morello for years has said that those who work forces are those that burn crosses, and I think that's very true. The amount of law enforcement, active military and ex-military that we saw in those crowds, and they're active in white supremacy movements, is disgusting and appalling. And until we can get rid of that, I think white supremacy is going to continue. I don't want to take up too much of the time.
Well, you see, it's interesting you bring that up because this is why a lot of people, especially people of color, talk about the relationship that we have as people of color with the police department. Especially, I mean, think as far back as John Lewis. He walked across the bridge in Selma, and it was the police that attacked him with dogs. It wasn't the residents of the town. Not saying that the residents of the town didn't approve, but it was the actual police department that they were confronted with. Whenever you have a protest, it's usually the police that come to censor that protest. So if you have a civil rights march and you have policemen that are beating you over the head and you watch it, I mean, it's a matter of history. And then you look in 2021 and you see, I would say, the descendants of these same racist people still have badges. I mean, some of these, when you look at some of these southern towns, the grandfather was the police chief, the son was the deputy, and those positions are passed down. The same as you find in some big cities, such as New York. The father, the son, the grandfather, the lineage, it goes on and on and on. So I think, when you look at the history, you have to think that there has to be a certain amount of ingrained fear, ingrained hate, and ingrained mistrust, because the people we that are supposed to protect us are the people that are prosecuting us.
Absolutely. I mean, LBJ did send the U.S. Marshals to protect Ruby Bridges going to school because he thought that the local police were. And on that note, if you also look at that wasn't that long ago that we integrated schools or desegregated schools. Most of that generation is anywhere from 68 to 75. So that deep, burning, white pride, Southern hatred is still alive. I mean, we are, people like to think that we live in a different era than the John Lewis beatings, the Southern right, or the Southern civil rights movement. A lot of those people are still alive today. We are nowhere near moving past that. And I'm this is odd. And I'll be honest, as a straight white man, it's odd to be the one to stand up and have to say it within my demographic group. We need to stop as a society acting like we are not still fighting against that same pure racist hatred that we've read about in textbooks and we've seen in documentaries. It's still good and alive in the United States, and unfortunately sitting here in Indiana. And as soon as we can realize that it's still there, we can start to actually make progress. But until we have a stark, honest conversation with ourselves, we're not going to make any progress. None that's going to last.
Yeah, sadly, I do have to agree with you on that. Um, you ran for office in Indiana, so you're pretty familiar with politics and how they're approached and what it takes to file the whole process from beginning to end. Um, from someone that knows probably more about the machine of politics, what do you think about this second impeachment of 45? Um, now, I'll give you my view and then you can tell me yours. Uh, the reason why I wanted to see him impeached is not just because of what he did in as far as inciting the crowd. I am more concerned with the fact that he would never be able to run for public office again. Because even if there's a split in the Republican Party, this man managed to get 75 million votes. So I am more concerned with him not taking, him not having that type of leverage. I mean, it would be one thing for him to back someone, but I don't want to see him in public office again. What's your take on the second impeachment of
Uh,
45?
my take is pretty much the same as yours. He's already out of office. Thankfully, he can't damage the country any farther than he already has from that perspective. But I'm with you. I welcome the second impeachment from a simply procedural and legal standpoint. We need to bar him from ever running for public office. We need to make sure that the farther we get removed from his administration, the bigger a black bar is over the name Trump. We need to make sure it is a dark stain on our history. And the only way we can really start to turn that against them, and I say them as the Republican Party, is by getting 51 votes in the Senate to bar him.
Now, I know we're kind of pressed for time here. Well, not really. This is a little different, but let's talk about Biden's first 100 days and the things that he wants to accomplish. Uh, and let's start with the vaccine. Now, today he has actually set the bar a little higher because he says that he thinks it's possible by spring that we can actually do 1.5 million vaccinations. So, what are your thoughts about his uh, campaign? Well, actually, it was the first thing he said in his speech. Do you think that his expectations are a little high, or uh, do you think, as you know, the right is saying that he's setting the bar low, so that if he succeeds, of course, it'll be a false victory, so to speak. Your thoughts?
I commend the Biden administration, everyone around it. We see the pundits and we see all the talk shows that say, "Oh, it's just Biden." Not like there's thousands of staffers behind him working day in and day out to help move the country forward. I am cautiously optimistic about the 100 million vaccinations in the first 100 days. I think that was a good campaign tactic as someone who thinks electorally like that. I think we're probably looking around June before we hit that first 100 million vaccinations. But to me, I like it because when the president typically when the president says we're going to do something, as a country we do it. John F. Kennedy said that we would go to the moon in 10 years, and 8.5 years later, we put a man on the moon. When we set forth as a country, there's nothing that we can't do. And if we seriously take this up, if he enacts the defense manufacturing, uh, I can't think what it is. It's where he can, where he can federalize
Right.
manufacturing. Doing that is going to expedite the situation. And if he nationalizes the National Guard, which I think he needs to continue to push vaccinations through grocery stores, in shopping malls, any place that we can get to people at a pharmacy, that's how we're going to get it. We can't, have people make an appointment or sign up when it's available. No, we need to put enough vaccines out there that we can get them into arms the second we have a person in the room.
And let's see, the second part, I'm going to take them kind of out of order here, but reopening schools. He says we will be able to reopen schools within that 100-day period also. And safely, we're talking about reopening schools here. We're not just talking about mass, like the schools open, everybody, this is making sure that everybody's safe to go back to school. What do you think about that? I mean, we're talking about kids here. Kids were hard to watch when we didn't have masks. If you have nieces, nephews, or even kids yourself, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We were kids once. That's a good enough example. So,
Exactly. I as we go forward, if you look at it, that first 100 days puts us somewhere in April. It puts us in first 100 days. To me, he needs to he needs to buy a little bit of time that because if we can get through this calendar school year into May, June, some of the later states, I think we'll be fine. I think we can get kids into school by the fall semester, but I do not think that we can get them in safely for any of the spring semester. And that's fine. You know, we've done this the entire year. We did part of last year. And I can tell you this from working with a lot of public educators and knowing in politics, working with them, and knowing how they are as people, they're going to make sure that the kids are where they need to be. We also need to be a little bit more lenient on testing this year, but you know that's a whole other episode conversation. But if we can simply get through the school year, I think we can reopen in the fall. But once again, that's going to take a big push from our federal government to make sure that we get vaccinations in August.
And last of all, the stimulus package. Of course, it's they're talking about $1,400 because we've already gotten six out into most people's account, I believe, according to statistics. But we have a Republican Party that says it's okay for us to go. I'm going to guess because the last time I saw it, it was $2 trillion. But I'm going to say close to $3 trillion or more in debt in the last 4 years. But we can't come up with $1.9 trillion to put our citizens at least back on their feet. And I'm not talking about, we're not going to be throwing, $20 bills in the air like we're in a strip club. It's not like that. We're talking about $1,400, which, if you live out here in California, that's really not going to get you too much. And like you say, we've been out of work for almost a year. So a lot of people have exhausted their savings and they're probably at least 1 month behind in the rent. So once again, we come down to stimulus package and 100 days. Do you think Mitch McConnell and the boys are going to, after all, they backed the fraudulent election for almost 90 days. Do you think that they can block this for 90 days?
I'm going to be honest. I don't know if the Republicans have that political capital to spend going into the midterm elections, and that's where Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Steny Hoyer, James Clyburn, where the leadership in Congress needs to work with the Republicans. Mitch McConnell does not want to lose more Republicans. He doesn't. His job is to protect what he has and expand on it. Same with McCarthy in the House, minority leader in the House. If they block this for too long and they block help getting to the average citizen, it's going to cost them elections. And I think they're going to blow a lot of smoke. The Republicans, they're going to talk a big game. But at the end of the day, they would rather save their own rear ends and their own jobs than blockade anything that Biden does. Lindsey Graham himself, he is about as spineless as they come. He'll back the winning team. McConnell won't want to lose any elections. Mitt Romney might as well just switch and caucus with the Democrats at this point. He's every Democrat's best friend in the Senate. And we've got another handful over like Murkowski, Collins, Tillis that are willing to at least talk with the Democrats that I think we can, with the right leadership and the right fortitude, get them to come to our side of things when it comes to getting relief to the American people.
So you're confident that Biden will be able to get most of this done within the next 100 days. You're more optimistic than you are pessimistic about Biden's programs.
I am. I think that it's odd to watch the federal government from the White House and Congress start to push the or pull the rope in one direction. And I do believe that if they can get enough Republicans on board, they're going to be able to go. Because we are in a place in the country where it's not cute, it's not a political game to block an effort by one group that's trying to do something. It's costing us lives and it's costing us livelihoods, and they just can't do
Well, hey, as always, Luke, it's good talking with you, man. Why don't you give us your final thoughts for the evening? I know, it's a new administration, a new day. How are things looking for Democrats in Indiana? And give us a little fill in, and we hope to have you back on the program very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on, James. It's always great to come on. No, it's I'm optimistic about what the Biden administration can do. Cautiously optimistic. At some point, he's going to run out of political capital. He's not going to get everything done, but I hope for the sake of the country, he can get as much as he wants done. Here in Indiana, we're just organizing. We have no elections in 21, thankfully, and we've just got to continue to get ready for 22. We can't continue to lose ground. We got to start pushing forward. And if you don't mind, I'd like to throw a plug on for my own show that I do on Tuesdays.
Oh, fine. Yes.
Yeah, I do a show. It's at 6 p.m. Central Time, so it'd be at 4 p.m. your guys' time out in California. It's you can find us on the TuneIn Radio app under A Better Way Forward. It's on 103.1 WVLP. It's a radio show, but we broadcast live around the world. So if anyone wants to tune in, we normally talk what's going on in the state of Indiana, any major issues that are going on, and normally we just throw a little random conversation in there to keep it light.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, man, we'll be glad to post that. Make sure you post it on the page under your remarks when you go to our page, and we'll make sure that our followers get the notice. But thank you so much, Luke. And hey, anytime you want to talk about some national things, hey, give me a call. I'll probably be available. So you have a good
Sounds
night.
good. Anytime you need someone, let me know.
All right. Hey man, anytime Tuesdays, that's a good time for me. I do a boxing show with K9 Bundridge, 6 o'clock my time, which is 9 o'clock your time. So I do have a few minutes. Hey, if you want to network, just let me know. You have
Sounds
a great
good,
night.
James. Take care. Thank you.
All right. You have a good night. Well, that's how things go in the state of Indiana. Our next two guests are actually from here in California, and we're going to first start with Andy Zinsberg. Andy, how you doing this evening, my man?
I'm well, James. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. I see we're all still safe from the COVID, and thank God we have a new president in the White House. So let's kind of jump right off here in deep water, knowing that we have a lot to discuss. Andy, as an educator, do you think 100 days is a reasonable goal to reopen schools?
I'm going to say no for a couple of reasons. One, in 100 days, it's going to be April, May, and school's going to be over. And kids should not miss their summer. They've missed enough already. Now, 100 days in terms of getting out vaccinations and making sure that it's physically, spatially safe, I do think that it's reasonable. I think that schools should be able to come up with plans for safety and social distancing if necessary, and but I still think it's going to be up to teachers' individual personal comfort levels as to when they decide they're comfortable being back full time in the classroom. Personally, right now, I don't feel comfortable whatsoever going into the classroom setting, and I need to see that be successful before I feel confident doing it. Which means that there are going to obviously some people who are going to have to be brave and step up and say, yeah. So it's a tough question.
Introduce us to your little friend there. It seems to be a little camera here. So why don't you introduce us?
This is Rudy. He's a dog. Have you ever seen Meatballs with Bill Murray?
Yes, yes.
So the camper that Bill Murray takes under his wing is named Rudy, and so this is Rudy, and I'm Bill Murray.
Okay. Well, how you doing there, Rudy? I see Rudy is very energetic. Speaking of energetic, let's talk about the adventures of the right wing and how they're trying to invalidate the election. Do you think that this has actually served to undermine the democratic process? Do you think, I mean, there were 75 million people that voted uh, for someone other than Biden. Do you think that those 75 million people really believe that the election was stolen?
Yeah, I think they do believe that, and I think it's social media's fault, along with the president and Cruz and Hawley and all the conspiracy theorist groups. But I don't think it's totally to blame. Sorry. Give me the question again.
No, I said, when you look at the right wing groups that attacked the Capitol and things like that, do you think that these 75 million people actually believe that the election was stolen from them, or that there were 80 million irregularities, and this Trump, that this election is actually illegal?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yes, I do think that they believe it, and I think it's social media's fault because people just believe what they look what they scroll onto, and if it's on their feed, it must be trustworthy because they're trustworthy. And people don't want to consider source because that's difficult. And I mean, it's not difficult, but it takes another step out of their scrolling, which they're not likely to do. And now, if they truly believe that, and we truly believe that if this was the most least fraudulent election in the history of American elections or elections in general, then there's a disconnect and someone's system of belief is wrong, and no one's going to believe that based off of anything that anyone says. It's going to be based off of their own thought processes. And the problem with that is that people with stubborn thought processes surround themselves with other people with stubborn thought processes. And therefore, they become solidified and seem like fact.
Let's bring this a little closer to home. We had protesters down in PB, where a demonstration that turned into a scene where police had to be called. We have a woman from San Diego that was shot assaulting the Capitol. Are you surprised that we have that many extremists here in San Diego? Or do you think that they feel that, what's the word that I want to use? Do you feel that they feel entitled now that we have been more or less under the thumb of a what I would call a racist president?
I would call him that as well. Um, yeah, I would agree. Um, sorry, this dog has got me pretty kind of a little distracted. Um, I am not surprised because I think wherever you find a military base, you're going to find extremists. A lot of people go into the military. Um, well, this is going to sound privileged, but one, because there might be lower socioeconomic, they might not be able to afford college, and military might be an immediate viable option right out of high school. And secondly, people in the military generally enjoy guns. Maybe not all, but people a lot of people become police officers in military because they enjoy the opportunity to use force or the idea of using force or being an authority figure. So I'm not surprised that Ashley was killed at the Capitol. And this might be rude, but I'm not bummed about it either. She made the choice to go in there, and I saw someone on a right wing group that I kind of follow for laughs slash I don't know, just drives me crazy. But someone commented there was a post about her, and someone said, "Say her name, Ashley Babbitt," and I got so fucking pissed off because she chose to go in there. Everybody's gonna know who she is in 30 seconds when they turn on the TV. People don't know, like the reason we say her name for Breonna Taylor is because people did not know who she was, and she was murdered for no reason. So the fact that that was compared um, drives me crazy, but I think it speaks to my point before that there's a disconnect between left and right thinking in that people truly believe that what they're saying, even if it's racist or horrible or sexist, is is right and is justified because a couple people around them agree with them.
Um, there are rumors that some of the congressmen, the people in Congress, actually led tours uh, around these particular buildings. And there has been Washington tours since COVID started. If there are any congressmen that are found to be complicit, do you think that they should be um, subject to criminal liability? Well, no, not liability. Well, even criminal liability also, as far as the damage that was done. But what do you think about the idea that we have people in Congress putting other people in Congress at risk in order to promote their own platforms? I mean, you have Ted
Yeah,
Cruz, you have Holly, you have the lady that's supposed to be with QAnon. Supposedly they led tours. Some of the Capitol Police, opened up, and just let some of these people in. What do you think about, as far as criminal uh, uh, responsibility?
I think I 100% feel that they should be held accountable for any criminal or civil acts of badness that they did, but I also just as strongly feel that they will not be penalized or punished or have any um, all publicity is good publicity, they say, um, and I think when they're in the positions of power that they're in, they're incredibly unlikely to see discipline. We see Zimmerman and the Breonna Taylor cops not getting charged, and the Floyd people not getting charged as they should be. And so those people they have power, they have guns, they have badges, but they're not on the level of Hawley, Cruz, Trump. So I don't I don't expect anything to happen to Cruz or Hawley. I think they're gonna serve their sentence in the Senate or whatever, House or Senate. I don't know where they're at. And I don't think Trump's going to get convicted in the impeachment trial. Um, which the only thing that I've ever agreed with Tucker Carlson about is that we give Trump too much attention. And I think the fact that thinking that this is going to end without a conviction makes me think they're just stoking the fire of Trump supporters who want to see him in any capacity again, which is creating more danger potentially.
Do you think that Trump should be banned from public office? Period.
100%. Yeah. I hope he dies. My mother said something the other day which I didn't like. She said, "I hope he gets assassinated," which initially you're like, oh yeah, that goes along with my thought of dying, but that also gives the idea that someone should become a murderer, which I don't like and I'm not okay with. And then you want to say like, well, Mom, what if I did it? What if I became that murderer? So there's people hired for money, but Donald Trump is more likely to know them than I am. So I don't see how joking about assassination is a positive thing. So I had to talk with my mother about that.
Yeah, we don't want to see any and not that type of harm come to him. But I do think that he should be banned from public office of any type. Let's come back to home here. What did you think about the fact that we have, I believe it was two of the House of our representatives that stood up for this hoax, as well as Joe Issa, which we all knew that Issa was going to do anyway. But once again, it kind of comes back down to local politics. Do you? What's your take on that when you consider? And this is another reason why I think that politicians. One of the things, my requirements is that they should be under 50 years old. And I think that they should. We should start our senators or people that are going to be sent to judge our law, to make our laws, should be between the ages of 35 and 50, because those are the people that it's going to affect first and the longest. People my age, I mean, it seems very ignorant for people my age, 73, to be making rules for you to live by, and you're under 40 years old. First of all, you're going to outlive me, so we're going to be stuck in a situation like we are now. Second of all, it doesn't seem like these people have been in Congress for 30 and 40 years, and they haven't made any damn progress. So I really don't have any confidence in them. So, what's your thoughts on
that? As a teacher, my initial thought was, well, why don't we have evaluations for lawmakers? Why don't we, evaluate whether their laws that they've made have been a positive or negative impact on society? But then I immediately think that voting is their assessment. We vote to keep them or we vote to get rid of them. But is that enough evaluation of our senators and congressmen? I don't think so, because are we saying there's only two people per state who can sit in the Senate, or 4 to choose from. There's hundreds, millions of geniuses out there that could positively impact the society through law. Um, I thought it was interesting at the end of the, I think it was on the 6th, at the end of the certification, when they said this man will be escorted down, and I think it was because he was elderly and he needed to be escorted, and I don't think they would have said that for a younger individual. And I thought, y- not because of his age, but is this the best person to be having come into that role right now? Um, and so I like your idea of age limits, but I just think maybe more, like I was talking about, having evaluation for them. Younger and older lawmakers maybe have more evaluation, while the middle-aged people are in tenure, if you will. Um, I always thought you should get to retire for 15 years after you finish college and then work till you die. Um, so I would just love to see a whole revamped system.
Yeah, term limits would also come in here. I think that's also something that needs to be done. Term limits, uh, but now when we talked about going to school, I think about kids going back to school. I think all of us kind of thought about kids, but we have college kids also. Just turning 18, 19 years old, and that doesn't mean that just because they're away from home that they're responsible adults. Some may be able to vote in their own state, but what demographic do you think poses the most concern? The college aged student or the elementary to junior high student?
Gosh, I'm gonna give you one of your answers and one of my answers. From your answer, I'd say the college age students. They say 1 in 4 kids who live in the dorms freshman year don't make it through college in the general 4-year plan, meaning they make poor choices, drop out of some classes, fail some classes, take time away from school to mature, if you will, and learn how to be an independent individual who can be successful and adult. Um, so when people make those poor choices, those are choices that are going to lead into COVID spreading. And then my answer is I worry about the moderate to severe special education population of students, because those are students who may not understand, whether they believe it or not, why we wear a mask, or they may not be able to keep their mask on, or they might still sneeze, or you know not wash their hands, etc. So as a teacher who teaches that population, it increases my anxiety and makes me really, really want to again see something successful, a model of school, before I go into accepting a job and working in one.
Okay, that definitely makes a sense there. Uh, 100 vaccinations I mean, 100 million vaccinations in 100 days. Uh, Out here, once again, going back to the local problem, I've seen the lines down in Petco Park because I'm close to that demographic, but not quite there in that 75-year bracket. But I do have some existing conditions. And I look at some of the things that are done for publicity purposes. For instance, I'm almost 74 years old and I'm watching an NBA player get a shot on TV. Well, I'm in more risk than he is. And, I mean, I guess for one of being selfish, I'm asking myself, well, is it the fact that he's on a higher economic scale than I am that makes him able to get the vaccine and not me?
Was he
Uh,
white?
huh?
Was he black or white?
I've actually seen both get it done. I believe it was a white player that I was showing, but I know LeBron and there's some other players that have done it on TV. And I understand the reason why, because a lot of people think that the vaccine may be unsafe.
Right.
Are you confident in a vaccine that was developed this quickly when all vaccines that we have seen before, they tell us that it takes years? Now, here's a disease that has killed millions of people around the world, but we're able to develop a vaccine within a year. How confident are you in its development and the different uh, brands, for want of a different term? First we had Pfizer and Moderna, then we had AstraZeneca. Now we have some other people in the mix, Johnson and Johnson, so forth and so on. Uh, but are you confident in the what was it called, Operation Rapid Response or whatever it
Or
is? Uh, how confident are you in the vaccines that we have available out here in California?
I'm 100% confident due to just the medical professionals that I've heard talk about it, and um, like I'm okay with mainstream media, and if doctors are saying this is okay, if all the doctors are saying okay, there was a point before Trump left office that I wanted, and maybe even still, that I would consider asking my doctor, "Who did you vote for?" and and testing their opinion accordingly. Um, but I haven't heard any doctor say that the vaccine is not safe. So, regardless of who they voted for, it seems like they're telling the truth.
So you do believe in the science?
Yeah. But to back to the school opening aspect, if they're not going to include teachers on on making the vaccine available immediately, then I think that's just incredibly rude and disrespectful to the population that's helping the next population, the next generation grow and learn. And it's like, what do you want from us? Do you want us in school or do you want us dead? Um, and like I said, that I want to see a new system, something that works well, because there's a million problems with school before the pandemic, and the pandemic certainly highlighted them and brought them to light for parents and just about everybody with a kid or with a kid in their life. So I really hope to see some change in the education systems after this pandemic ends.
Yeah, that's what the Chicago Teachers Union is saying when they're talking about going back to school. But Andy, it was good talking with you tonight and meeting your buddy there. So why don't you give us your final thoughts for the evening, my man? And I look forward to having you back when school's open.
Absolutely, yeah, I'd love to chime in then too. Final thoughts. I'll just mention my favorite Facebook post that I've seen since Inauguration Day. My sister-in-law posted 4-year exhale,
Okay.
as in we were holding our breath for 4 years and now we can exhale. So,
Yes, we're coming up with a lot of mimes for Trump being gone.
absolutely,
But thank you for coming on, my man. I enjoyed talking with you.
awesome. Yeah, text me anytime.
All right, Andy. Have a great night.
You too. Be well.
Well, we saved the best for last, y'all. This young lady, I first met her in a Zoom meeting, and she has some very uh, interesting stories as well as some very interesting points of view. And let's introduce Miss Dahlia Balmer to the show tonight. I know I butchered your name, Dahlia, but you can introduce yourself and tell everyone some of the things that you're into. I put down you're an entrepreneur, an educator, as well as a mom. So why don't you introduce those of us that don't know you? Why don't you introduce yourself to the audience? You're on mute right now. You have to take yourself off mute.
I always do that.
See, and you being a Zoom star too. You know
I'm
that.
like, yeah. I'm like, why do I always do that? But you didn't botch my name up. You said it perfectly. It's Dahlia. That's right.
Okay.
So yeah, I left the corporate world in 2018 and kicked off my own business, which I do racial equity workshops and facilitate discussions, and just encouraging people to use yourself as the instrument to understand, especially non-BIPOC, as I call it, Black, Indigenous, people of color. Those who identify as white have a lot of work to do as far as just understanding the historical context, what it means in today's society, how systemic racism impacts people of color, all that stuff, right? So I'm hoping to bring some insight to those who just don't know where to start. And then, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt you there. Go ahead.
No, and then I'm also very much an educational advocate. So I work closely in my school district and getting involved I'm part of a committee for racial improvement and also looking at the ethnic curriculum. I also create curriculum myself as an entrepreneur for youth on topics such as racism and microaggressions and racial profiling, because I really believe that kids, we don't do justice in teaching them so that they have the information to know how to navigate through all this mess that we created.
You know, as a mom, I'm still concerned why we're having the talk, but we'll kind of get back to that later because it's a very long subject as far as I'm concerned. We shouldn't be still having this conversation, but since we are, let's talk about some of the things that lead us to this conversation. And you spoke of, I know I'm getting off the subject here, but you spoke of curriculum and a lot of things that were taught as my curriculum, even when I was in college and you were talking about the history of America, you included some of the horrors of slavery. Nowadays, when you talk about slavery in history books, from what I've seen, it's a period in history. It happened between such and such and such. And during that time, we had the Gettysburg. I mean, we had the Civil War, which killed X number of white people. No mention of the fact that families were torn apart. What it meant. To have to eat chitlins and pig's feet and things like this. So how do you bring the modern day curriculum up to what really happened? I mean, it seems that we gloss over things that are uncomfortable.
Oh, we definitely do that. We all, we don't, as Black people, we don't, but others do, right? Because they don't want to sit in a discomfort, which is very important. We can't make change unless you sit in the discomfort. I mean, I don't want to, but I face it because I have a lot of melanin, and so do my brothers and sisters. So there's really very little choice. And for those of us who have melanin, have chosen not to, that's a whole different conversation. But this is interesting because when I grew up, and I grew up I'm a 70s baby, grew up in the, the 70s, 80s before I went to college in the 90s. But so I went to private school. We didn't talk about it either. It was like basically there was slavery, and then Abraham Lincoln was this great president, and then he freed the slaves, and then everybody's happy. That's pretty much what I got. So that was my upbringing, and that was 70s and 80s in private school. So today, I know the state of California, Governor Newsom, I believe he signed it, or he's signing it. I believe it is, but there's now a requirement. There's been a huge grassroots movement towards, listen, enough is enough. For example, the state of California was not just one type of racial or ethnic group. There's many racial and ethnic groups. And as far as we're concerned, the people want to see ourselves in those books, history, English. We want to talk about the truth and not just whitewash it, but just be real. And so this has been happening for years. And so now there's an expectation. I think the first graduating class, I believe, will be 23. I think that's my son's class, actually. 23 or 24 who will be graduating with a requirement of ethnic studies curriculum at the high school level. And then at the same time, K through 8, they're actually implementing the next step to be implementing how do we start to bring in this information from kindergarten through 8th grade, at each level, at age appropriate levels for the school. So and I'm part of a pilot that's being run right now in our backyard, Poway Unified School District, which is where I live, and doing that.
So we've kind of gotten away from the whitewash, so to speak. But Republicans actually, when you look at the demographic of this last election, Republicans actually gained in the number of minority votes they were able to vet this time. And oddly enough, it came from Black men, but Black women overwhelmingly voted for Biden, much more than they did in 2016. What do you think about? I mean, what caused first of all, what do you think caused more people of color to vote for right-wing white supremacists, even though you know that these people don't like you or are not really interested in making things on an equal basis for you, let alone think of you as a human being. And I'm speaking a little too strongly here. I do have that tendency, but but anyway, how do you convince these Ben Carsons and the different Black conservatives that I've seen on Fox News, and I've seen more on Fox News since Biden was elected than I have during the whole 4 years of Trump? I don't know. Are they just picking them up out of the carpet? I don't know where they're coming from. But anyway, it seems that we have picked up more Black conservatives during the Trump years than at any other time in history. Is there any way I mean, do you see any connection between this and the miseducation of our children?
No. I'm just going to throw it out there. It's either conscientious stupidity or sincere ignorance. You tell me they were men. It was men.
Well, I'm keeping it real. I mean, I believe in the first election. I believe, because I've had a couple of them call my show. During it was 2% the first year I started the show. It was 12% about 2 years into the program, and now it's almost 22% more black men voted for Trump in 2020 than they did in 2016. Whereas it was the complete opposite of black women. 28% of black women voted more for Biden than they did for the Trump era.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah, overwhelmingly black women, hands down. But let's just say, first of all, black people, period, 90% voted for Biden. I mean,
yes,
let's just make sure that most of us did not do that.
right.
Those who did, one of my I have a cousin who is a Trump supporter. He's actually, I'm not going to claim him as he's my cousin husband, and he voted for Trump. And I know a lot of what he talked about was this narrative in his mind about Trump, the financial security, prosperity, business, Biden going to be taxing people. Of course, you have to pay $400,000 or more, so he won't get taxed. But you know what I mean? I mean, you start to break it down like that. Like, you're not getting taxed. Like, if there's a tax going on, you're not going to be taxed. No. But yet, because you don't make $400,000. So this is a mute issue. Things like that. And then if you make $400,000 or more, you can afford to be taxed. You can afford to have I think it's like a 3 or 4% increase in taxes. You can afford that. I mean, that's why we are taxed in this country, so that we can have access to all of these public things. I mean, there's some things we got to give up, and I'm okay with that. I don't have a problem paying taxes, because at the end of the day, it goes into the bucket, right? It's just how we distribute the tax, how we make sure that the problem I have is the unequal distribution of how tax, right? How some areas get nicer, dividends when it comes to, taking care of your roads and transportation and all that stuff, right? So that's my issue. I think there's just a lot of, I don't know. I think people, maybe they're just misinformed, and there's always going to be that, there's always that one, right? Like, there's all that, you always have that one in your family. So we've got that one.
Yeah.
we have a couple percentage in the family that's going to go for Trump, but it didn't work out either way. Ignorance to me. I told my cousin, my cousin's husband, it's just, and I've sat down with him and had conversations, and there's a level of ignorance, honestly, a level of misinformation and ignorance.
Couple of things when you talk about ignorance. First of all, let's talk about Governor Newsom. That they've been attacking him about how he's handled the pandemic. The restaurant owners want to recall him because of things that have happened. How do you feel about Governor Newsom and the way that he's handled the pandemic? Do you think it's more on the governor, or do you think it's more on lack of cooperation from the federal government, especially when you think about some of the things that Trump has said, during the fires, hey, if you rake your forest, it won't happen. I mean, just some of the ignorance that's come out of his mouth, concerning California, the commerce taxes and things like that. But living here, what do you think about the way Newsom has handled this?
So I have a lot of respect for Governor Newsom. Honestly, I think he's done the best that he can within this pandemic. You have the federal government, a president who wasn't even taking it seriously. Yes, you say threatening, like how we're not going to get funds because, the state of California wasn't in his pocket, right? And so that was a lot of it. Now, and then you have all of these people, even in San Diego, people just don't follow the rules. They're walking around with no mask, not practicing safety, shouting off, my First Amendment rights have nothing to do with this. This is a pandemic. This is a public health emergency. Get a grip, put your mask on, And that is going to help. It's been proven that when we've actually followed the rules, we get out of the purple and then we get in the purple. I mean, so Newsom is trying to figure out the best way and navigate and make decisions to get us out of this. Now, restaurant owners, I mean, I feel for them. You know, there's a lot of our small business owners. But you know, it's interesting. I'm curious to know who are the restaurant owners who are complaining and asking them to be removed. I have a question about that because I tend to think that those living in San Diego, and I live in inland North County. So I happen to see the big difference between what's happening in North County and what's happening in going more south. People are practicing much more safety precautions going south than north. And there's this level of privilege and entitlement happening here in the North County. And I'm just going to put it out there because I live out here and I see it and I experience it. So I'm curious to know if those are the buckets of people who are like, get rid of Newsom. You know, it doesn't make sense to you?
Well, you know, a lot of things that happen up in North County really don't make sense to me, but you know,
Yeah.
but there are, I mean, but there are things down here in San Diego County that also don't make sense to me, such as the demonstration down in PB, and we had demonstrations. Down here, peaceful demonstrations, I might add, not that you know, where police had to be called, but when we were talking about the wall and the mass migration that was supposed to come through Tijuana, you know, I mean, we had protests about the children being locked up in cages, and those were peaceful. But it seems like when we get the right wing involved, there tends to be police involved. Now, I talked, and I think you were here when I was talking about our history with the police, and how things tend to happen when the police are involved. I dedicate the last half hour of my show to the Chicago Black Panthers, and we were talking about how one of the young men was slain just before Thanksgiving. But it always seems to me, and this goes back to the Capitol riots or wherever you want to go, when you know when the police show up, the amount of distrust within the crowd automatically seems to go up also. So when you look back at our elections and
unless you're the insurrection. Unless you're the insurrection. Come on in.
Well, that's kind of my question here. You know, why is it when we see these right wing demonstrations, you might see 6 or 7 people tossed off to jail or for disturbing the peace or something like that. When we had a peaceful Black Lives Matter march, we had police in riot gear come and attack the crowd for a man to hold the Bible upside down. People couldn't even tell him, look, at least turn it right side up. But anyway, when you look at the way things are handled in 2021, and I look at the way things were handled back in 1967, am I really supposed to think that there's progress being made?
So, I mean, the truth is, and this is a blanket statement, this is not to say that there aren't some police, and there's lots of great police officers, but that's not what I'm talking about right now. Police officers, they see Black people and brown people in the streets peacefully protesting. They see red. It's like the militia, right? It's like the slave patrols back in the day, just the 2020 version. That's how this really got started. I mean, there's this thing in the mind of these police officers that are the ones who are destructive. And then we don't have, I don't know what's going on with the good police officers. They need to step it up and they need to check their peers. I mean, that's the other part of it, because it's clearly racism. You see I mean, and people are peacefully walking, people are holding hands, people are smiling and talking, everyone's wearing a mask. And so why would you come at us like that? That's racism. There's no other reason. There's no justification, there's no rationale, because racism is a sickness, right? I really feel that. And these are people who are wearing these outfits that are supposed to be protecting us. They've never protected us. So I don't know why people are surprised. Police have never protected Black people. They are pockets of police officers who have protected on an individual basis and community, the more involved you are. But holistically, generally, collectively, police have never protected Black people. So I'm not surprised. I'm just kind of disgusted by it, because I feel like the system upholds it. And at what point are we going to stop upholding this madness? And then you have a bunch of, I have seen protests by white people. I mean, loud, obnoxious, getting in the face and yelling at police officers, and they're trying to sit there and have a conversation and, please calm down, sir. Please calm down, ma'am. Really? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I don't think that we're more than one step further than John Lewis when he walked across the bridge and he was attacked by police dogs. Now, we have tanks with water cannons and so forth and so on.
And I also think part of the other problem is that these past 4 years, we've had an administration who hasn't put that in check. Like, it's always been there, but I have never seen it come out so much as in the past 4 years. It's like, okay, we need you to go crawl back under the rock that you came in and be silent, because there was a point in time where there was even though the people who are quite racist and who are white supremacists, they knew enough not to say anything. They knew enough to kind of stay under the rock, right? And so the past 4 years, they've been like open season. Oh, you guys can come out, because now we have a leader who's saying, it's okay. We love you. It's okay. You can do this.
Okay. Now, see, now you bring me to another problem, because you talk about, Biden talked today about unity. Okay. Well, I'm a Black guy. The people on both sides of me have Trump signs in their yard. Okay. Trump's gone. Trump's been elected. I mean, been booted out of office. Am I supposed to forget that these people are Trump voters? Am I supposed to, like take a plate of cookies over to him now, and or a peace offering? I mean, how am I supposed, if we haven't had unity since, I just said 1967? How am I supposed to have unity in 100 days when I knew all along these people didn't like me before, 4 years ago? Are they going to like, am I supposed to be brothers with them in 100 days? I mean, you talk about unity. We haven't had unity for over 400 years. Are we supposed to get it in 100 days?
You know what? I think when Biden spoke about unity, I saw it as he was speaking about, this is the outcome that we're trying to achieve. I think, though, at the same time, I believe that he's very realistic in knowing that unity happens when, first you need to repair the harm and restore restoratively. So repair the harm, that means apologizing, that means showing remorse, that means being accountable and taking responsibility, and then saying, this is what we're going to do to not do it again. I haven't heard any of that from the Republican Party. So as far as I'm concerned, none of that, this unity isn't going to happen until I hear those things. So this is the problem. The Democratic Party has too often been too soft. They just turn the other cheek. Let's try again. Let's give them a chance. And these Republicans who are Currently, unfortunately, these leaders in the Senate are consistently showing their ass. Like, at what point are you going to be like, you know what? No, we're not doing this anymore. We need A, B, C, and D. And until we see this, honestly, I think that's where we need to go. And as you can see, the Republicans, they have no problem ignoring the Democratic Party and just doing whatever the hell they want to.
Yes. But once again, I have to look at us.
Mm-hmm.
It might have been the party, but we consistently, like I said, these people have been in you look
Yeah.
at Maxine Waters, and I'm not saying, I'm just using it
Yeah.
as an example.
Yeah.
30 years. You look at Dianne Feinstein. Sometimes I know sometimes in the morning she doesn't know her name. You can't convince me that, So I'm just saying,
Right.
which is once again why I don't think that I think that there should be a certain age, and I think there should be term limits
I agree.
to our congressional people.
I agree too. At a certain time, it's time to go, and we need some new, fresh blood. We need people who are going to move things, some more innovation. Clearly, the stuff, the way of doing business as usual is not working. And then we, as Black people, we need to step our game up too. We need to we need to educate ourselves, understand how this political, how the politics impacts us. What we need to do, we need to stay on top of these senators and our congressmen and our assembly members. All of that. We need to continue and push and push. It's tiring. It is, but it's something that needs to happen. That's how change is going to happen.
And let's talk about Carmela for a moment here, because she kind of proved herself to me on a different level. When she first started, I will admit, I was kind of like, her and Biden have done, that they put a whole lot of my brothers in jail, and some of them are still there, some of them died there, so. You haven't done a whole lot for the Black population, but I understood, those were the times. I would rather have so and so in jail now. I didn't have, them selling crack on my corner. I understand that. Okay. I don't understand the differences in time, in the amount of time they were given, but that's something else altogether. Do you think that as a woman of color, she will get the respect that the office of vice president formerly had? Back in, I'm not saying that, that she has to go out there and shoot somebody in the butt like Dick Cheney or something like that. But as far as her being to work with other members of Congress, and have we gotten past that angry Black woman that we pictured her as when she was running against Joe?
Yeah, I've never seen her as an angry Black woman. I have a lot of respect for now VP Harris. She is a phenomenal woman. She is strong. She was a prosecutor, for Christ's sake. She was putting people in jail. Let's just keep it real clear. That was her job. And within within the parameters of the law, she doesn't make the law, right? The laws were the ones that were stringent. And for people to put everything on Biden and everything on Kamala, that's just, again, that's a level of miseducation. A lot of people were guilty. There were, especially in California, there were Black communities saying, do something, the pressure to do something. So there's a lot of elements happening here. And then we learn. That was the 1990s. There's a lot going on during those times, and that crack was no joke, right? So, but she has earned it. This woman she's brilliant, and she definitely knows how to carry herself professionally. And I would definitely not want to. I think that she has earned the right to be where she's at today because of who she is. Absolutely. And I will continue to do that. The angry Black woman, again, that's just a narrative that that white dominant culture has created for Black women when we are just confident in ourselves, we know our shit, and we don't take shit. So
Hey,
get over it. That's what I say.
grandma didn't take no mess, so you know, what could I? You know, when grandma pointed the finger at you, you knew it was. Hey, you knew what
No,
time it was.
it's amazing to me because the Black woman is the foundation of the Black family in so many ways. Not to say that Black men are not either, but there's so much strength that women, a more holistic strength, right? And so there should be no doubt from us, we should be supporting her. You don't have to agree with you do not have to agree with everything someone does to support them in their path and opening up the door. I mean, making room for her to try to navigate. That's what we should be doing as women, as Black people. That's what we should be doing. Because honestly, I am tired of seeing our country run by just white old men. No offense. There's a lot of wonderful white old men out there. But the reality is our country is not just white old men. I mean, look at our country. It is way overdue. I'm hoping that we get some Asian people up in here, some Latinx folks, everything.
Well,
Somali. We just need to kind of diversify. We just need to remember the Benetton commercial back in the day. We need to just like
well, okay. Now we have made progress since her successor was the first Latino senator. And when you look at, well, I'm going to ask you as a Black woman, what did you think of Biden's picks and the diversity of his new cabinet?
I'm very impressed. I am. I think with the direction he's going with his cabinet, very nice. I did a little bit of research on everybody, and it seems like everybody's got a strong background. So I was happy to see it.
Yeah, people are actually put in positions that they are qualified for.
And they're actually having conversations. Did you watch that press conference, the press secretary? I was like, wow, we're just like talking like a dialogue. No one's yelling at the press and making.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, we're having press conferences. I mean, on a daily basis. The public is at least they have some information, but once again, I got to go back to this. Rand Paul made a statement, and the reason why I'm bringing this to you is because, as I said, you're a mother, you have growing children, but Rand Paul said that we should not have a $15 an hour minimum wage because it would mostly affect Black teenagers and people of color, because they would not be, the businesses would not be able to pay them $15 an hour, and they would fall on that first let go. Was it last hired, first fired type of position? Do you think that this is just his rhetoric, or do you think that this is something that would actually cause more of a decline in small businesses?
I think it's just rhetoric. I mean, honestly, if you're so concerned about small businesses, then do incentives out there to help support those small businesses so they can afford to pay the $15 an hour to those young Black and brown kids. You understand? It's always an excuse. Always an excuse. If it's something that you're so concerned about, then support and provide incentives. You give incentives and tax breaks for people who make ridiculous amounts of money in this country. So you're telling me you can't support the small business owner, to help them build their infrastructure, to help them build their capacity to afford that $15 an hour, right? Because ultimately that money goes back into the economy.
How confident are you that Biden will be able to get a stimulus package passed within 100 days? I mean, it seems kind of ridiculous to me. I see all the tax breaks that were given to businesses under the last administration. And all of a sudden, we hear that same old cry, we have no money.
Mhm.
Ruth Steakhouse, I believe, was given over $1 million during the stimulus. You look at some of the other food companies that were given these breaks, and these were not mom and pop restaurants.
Mhm.
These were corporate entities. So, how do we prevent this?
Well, I mean, I'm hoping I put my glass half full kind of personality. Excuse me. I'm hoping that. Oh, hold on. I swallowed the wrong pipe. I think so. Oh my goodness. Hold on.
You went down the wrong pipe here. I'm going to send Mr. Williams a different link here.
Okay. I'm back. Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Sorry about that, James. I totally I swallowed going down the wrong pipe. Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah, but it's just embarrassing when it happens on live TV.
That's God, that's okay.
but anyway, getting back to what we were talking about there, do you think that's just rhetoric? I mean, do you think that there is a
yes? I think it's rhetoric. I think there's a possibility. Who was that? Mad Mitch was talking about. He's going to try to put some things in place to kind of prevent it, but I am hopeful that it's going to happen. That's what I believe.
And let's see. We talked about this. We talked about vaccinations. We talked about reopening schools. How confident are you in reopening the schools?
So I think we can probably in the fall, most likely in the fall, because school's going to be out in May. And right now, the important thing is just to make sure that the kids are safe. That's the most important thing. And to make sure that teachers are safe, because teachers also have to come back to school and teach the kids, right? So I don't think we need to rush. I know my granddaughter, before the holiday break, he's a kindergartner. The little ones really do need to be in school because it's easier, they benefit more from the in-school learning. But like older kids, for example, depending on your child, may benefit more from maybe okay at home virtual learning versus going onto the campus. Like, for example, my son is perfectly fine and has been adjusting very well through virtual learning.
But a lot of kids aren't able to do that. And when you're talking about younger kids, especially like say K through 6,
yeah,
how do you get them to keep a mask on?
You know what? It's interesting, but I haven't heard the problem about the younger kids having a problem. Yeah, like for example, My kindergartner, she's 5. My granddaughter, who's a kindergartner, she's 5. She has 0 problems with the mask. But that's just, and I look at some of the other kids, they're fine too. So, and I know that it depends on the child, and it depends on, where you live, the weather, I mean, all that stuff, right? There's so many layers to it. But I think from from what I'm hearing from even other parents, the younger ones are doing okay with keeping masks on.
Okay. So in other words, it's the adults and the older kids.
Yeah, the older kids are fine too. I think it's the adults have a problem without wearing the mask. Yes. The First Amendment rights and all, right?
Yeah, right. Okay. All right. That's a whole different conversation.
I think this is what I think. So this is carving out children who have who need to be in the school because of having a IEP, learning disability, things like that. Aside from those special circumstances, this is a very short period of time, right? In the grand scheme of things, I think if we just take everything into perspective, and kids will catch up.
Okay.
That's what I honestly think. I think that our kids are going to catch up at some, and honestly, our school system needs to be revamped a little bit anyway. So I think this is a great opportunity to kind of look at how the educational system, and see what we can do to make it better for all children.
Have you found that there? I know one of the things that we talked about on Zoom was the cooperation among parents. How have you been able to address that problem during the pandemic?
Can you repeat that?
One of the things that you were talking about when we were talking on Zoom was cooperation between the parents. You've already said, there's a problem with the parents and masks, but have you found that there's more cooperation now between parents than there was when this first started?
I think so. I think at the beginning, people went into panic mode. I mean, especially when you're like one of those soccer moms or whatever, who is always out and about taking the kids to, sports practices. You get into such a routine, and then there's a big disruption. It's been a major disruption. And so I think now that we're kind of more in, it's been a year, pretty much almost. I think people are realizing that, yes, I'm having I'm experiencing cabin fever because I have to be stuck in the house and not be able to, do the things that I want to do, especially living in San Diego, right? Because if we were in Michigan, we'd be like, I'm good staying at home, going outside. I really don't want to be outside anyways. So we're in San Diego, which is a beautiful place to be. And so there's a lot of cabin fever going around, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of it.
When you talk about the different cultures, and we just had an election, do you find that people have came together more? Well, up to like this, have you found it easier to extend your hand without getting it bit off, like you might have been 2 years ago?
Like, what do you mean?
Last year, if you were talking to some people, especially like on Nextdoor, you ran into a certain attitude, and things were, I think, more centered according to your political beliefs on certain social media. Do you think that things have relaxed since 45 has been voted out of office?
You know what? I don't know. I don't know. Speaking of Nextdoor, I haven't been on there in a little bit. I had to unplug a little bit, but I'm curious to know what's happening. I suspect that things are going to quiet down a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I think especially there was such a I just know Trump's going to be reelected going on some platforms. And so now that that hasn't happened, I suspect it's going to get a little quiet.
Do you think that they're going underground? Like I mean,
I hope
uh,
so.
but but to say, I mean, you've been identified now, so do you are you more afraid of the reptile that you see, or are
Mm.
you more do you fear the reptile that is silent? In other words, are you both of them are deadly, but would you rather
Mhm.
run up on a rattlesnake or a copperhead?
I mean, I rather know where you're coming from versus I don't know where you're coming from in generally. But honestly, if you are a perceptive person, you'll see people coming without them even saying a word. So, and I,
Yeah, that's yes. I mean, that I think that's a trait, and maybe I'm getting like Jimmy the Greek here, but I think that's like an inherited black thing about being able to read other people
yes,
and know whether or not like, are you trying to feed me a line of bullshit? Excuse me,
right,
but anyway,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I just think that that's something that we
We,
inherently, it comes over.
I
Uh,
think so too. As Black people, we've had to develop that sense, right? Because we need to know, and uh, I've had that skill way before 4 years ago. It continued on the 4 years, and it will continue on 4 years from now.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, thank you so much for coming on tonight, Dahlia. I know we took a lot of your time here, but why don't you give us your final thoughts and let people know where they can find you on social media, and let us know about that business and what's going on. I know, like I said, it had been a while, but you had some very interesting concepts. So why don't you tell our audience about your business and then where they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a business called Balmir Inclusive. So you can find me on www.balmirinclusive.com. Like I said, I do racial equity workshops and actually just having dialogue. I think that's how we come together as people, is just having these uncomfortable discussions and sitting with the discomfort and just being real. And for those who aren't interested, then they're not interested. Because I think a lot of times we focus too much on those who are not going to shift or change or be open to to closing the gap in cross-cultural relationships, which is really what my business is really on cross-cultural relationships. So I really want to focus on folks who want to have those as part of their life. And I think it has been a long time. I really enjoyed our talk. This is fantastic. I'm sorry I totally went like coughing on live, but you know what? This is real. I have no problem with it. Not embarrassed. Like, it's what you get.
Uh, well, like I said, I hope to have you back on the show. I'm glad we got you back in the time frame again. So
Yes.
we're glad to have you back whenever you have a chance. Thank you so much for coming on, and I appreciate your time.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
All right, you have a good night. That was a great conversation. I'm trying to get Mr. Roy Robert Ward Williams in so we can get our time in with the Black Panthers this evening. And we seem to be having a little difficulty. Let's see if he can get in. Not sure why I'm having this difficulty, but anyway, getting back to the Biden moment here. I'm gonna send him a link. Okay, I think I hear Mr. Williams coming in now. Not sure. No, that was Dahlia back in. Not sure why I can't get Mr. Williams in. Okay. Let's give another minute or so here. I really want to hear what's been happening with the Panther Party and the movement, especially with here in San Diego. As I said, we had a young man that was actually deceased just before Thanksgiving. And I wanted to hear a little bit more about that, and especially what the new agenda is going to be for our party starting in January. So, I don't know what's going on with my battery today. Okay, I see Mr. Devon Walker is in. Let's let Brother Walker in. Okay. Brother Williams and Brother
Finally,
Devon.
I'm on. There we go.
All right, we in there.
All right.
All right.
Good deal.
Well, luckily enough, we're on streaming and we're not on my previous show where we've been kicked off. So let's get things started tonight. Brother Williams, we have another gentleman in the White House. We have a black woman as our vice president, but the war is not over. What's on your mind tonight, Brother Williams?
Well, I did want to give Brother Devon Walker an opportunity, our community liaison, to just kind of go over some things that deals with organization that he's partnered with this year. I know we've had him on in the past, organization Umoja. But before we do that, I'll go ahead and comment real quickly on just what you stated. In the Panther Party, our thing is unfortunate from a national level, we don't necessarily see that having a black person in the highest office means that black people collectively are going to benefit from that.
Right.
When I look at the situation, I look at the fact that we have to recognize that it's always about majority. And from that standpoint, no one in any specific position of office can necessarily cater to a minority perspective, so to speak. So I think there's very little that would change just because we have someone black in office. But what it does do is help raise the bar and hopefully help more people to become politically conscious. And from that standpoint, create higher levels of expectation, higher levels of demand, and higher levels of participation so that the narrative itself can help control the dynamic and cause the overall system to be more fair and practical about what goes on in office and about what type of legislation and things like that get passed and gets implemented and gets utilized. But we have to also realize that we're dealing with a country that is built off of certain aspects of capitalism that is not going to change overnight, no matter who's in a position of power. So when we talk about an injustice system that deals with um, needing to constantly supply a fresh supply of free labor, because keep in mind the prison system in the United States it contains more prisons than any other prison system in the world. So from that standpoint, the privatization and industrial prison complex demands fresh blood, fresh meat. That's not something that's going to change because we have another black person in the White House. In fact, I would even say go back and say we have to remember that if it wasn't for an Obama, we would not have had a Donald Trump. So, looking at the situation this time around, we're talking about a vice president, but looking at the situation this time around, what does our future hold? Is this going to continue to draw out more racism, more polarity, more division, or is it an opportunity to make right for the injustices and the polarization that Trump set a course and set precedent for the past 4 years? We don't know, So I'm just as anxious and curious to kind of sit back and get involved and do my part to see to it that we don't have a repeat of those same situations. So even at a small level, when I talk about the average citizen, even at a small level, the whole point is we have to recognize that we must do our part. And doing our part is not just simply voting. Doing our part is just holding the entire system accountable, being more active in the political process, and taking it from there.
Well, we do have Brother Devon on the other side. If you want to turn it over to him.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Brother Devon. Speak on
Hey,
emoji, what y'all do.
I wanted to add on to what you had said as well, because past the presidential candidates and all of that, what's his name? I'm excited about like the council members and things that we got in, like the local, like the city council and stuff like that, because um, one thing that I've seen recently is the San Diego, like the city fridge projects, how people will set up fridges for the people outside. um, they would shut them down a lot um, before this last election, and a lot of the council members supported that, and they didn't want it to happen. And um, you know, you have some council members posting about it now, saying that it's a good thing, and they approve of it. So the persistence in people being um, effective and on the local level, just caring about the community, it's being seen and it's being improved now more so than it was beforehand. So that's a positive that I've seen from the elections.
What about food banks and things of that nature? Have people been able to get the proper stores that they need to get us through the pandemic?
Food banks, as in for people that are looking for food.
Yes, one of the things that people have been talking about is the increasing number of food banks, the people that are needing food now. And we're not just talking about homeless people. We're talking about people that haven't been able to work. We're talking about people that maybe have had jobs in fast food restaurants and low income people in general. Have you seen an increase in corporate donations? How has that worked out within the black neighborhood?
I'm not sure, honestly. I don't know anything about corporate donations. Most donations that we get, or any other grassroots organization that I know as of now, are getting donations from the people, and I feel like that's the best kind of donation you can get. And the more people that Like the more people that can do these fridges and things like that, I feel like we could have a community centered food bank where the community is taking care of themselves through the excess of food that they have. You know, it goes into each fridge, so then we can have our own bank in each city. But I'm not sure about the food banks.
Well,
They,
I
they,
can speak on it a little bit. Remember our nonprofit Panther Formation, which is ran by Henry Wallace. We utilize a food bank program through that. So from that standpoint, every Tuesday at the Elks Lodge, which is on 6 Hensley at 11 a.m., um, we've been giving out food in the community, and that program has been up and running for well over 3 years. And yeah, and we utilize food banks to operate that program. And so I do want to say that we have seen an increase in the amount of food donations that we've been able to get through that program, as well as I do know of other programs throughout the city that are operating and being able to keep that going. And like I said, even with that, uh, most of the people that do come through there, because it is like around, like I said, 11 a.m., all the elderly and the retired, but these are not homeless people, because the products that we're giving away are perishables. So it's like a lot of meats, canned goods, and things that you have to cook on the stove. So
Mhm.
the program operates off that, and again, that's at 6 Hensley um, in San Diego every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Um, so yeah, that program's been going real well, and yes, we have seen an increase in food banks. And food banks have always we've always had an ease of operation from a nonprofit status working through food banks. So yes.
Um, vaccines. We've seen, first we're talking about them, not being able to put them in arms. Uh, we're talking about, how many we have, the stockpile that wasn't there. But have we seen an increase in the mistrust of our neighborhoods to get this vaccine? Now, I, I have a certain criteria myself, and there's the Pfizer, there's the Moderna, and there's the AstraZeneca. Now, I'm not one to really participate in conspiracy theories, but when I have a pharmaceutical company that wants to exclusively distribute their vaccine to people of color in countries of color, I have a problem with that. Why aren't you testing it on your own people before you give it to me? So I'm willing to take the Pfizer, and I'm willing to take the Moderna. We have the Moderna here at the Veterans Hospital, but I'm a little leery about taking the AstraZeneca. Now, and I'm thinking, if this is what I'm thinking, and I'll be 74 on the 4th of February, and I'm still thinking about the experimentations. I'm thinking of some of the vaccines that I had to take when I was in the army, and how it affected me differently than it affected some other people. So I'm thinking of all these things. Is this type of questioning or mistrust still ingrained within the black community, uh, Devon? Seems we've lost Brother Williams for a moment.
I'd say yes. I know that I myself won't be taking any vaccine. Um, I just know the history on vaccines and how they can be weaponized, how they are weaponized, what population they're weaponized against, and if anything, I mean, I myself won't be taking a vaccine like in the foreseeable future, even if forced. But if I'm gonna give like advice to anyone that is going to, I wouldn't take it for 6 to 8 months. as they're testing it, and they're literally testing it on people. They haven't tested it on anything else. It's something they made up, and um, the man, I forget his name. Whoever's Bill Gates, the one that's at the head of it, doesn't have the best intentions for our population. He said it himself that 3 billion people need to die or something like that, and we all know who they test things on first. They want to go to Africa because the the sickness is so disposed towards our people, but we all know what they have done with vaccines towards our people, so it just makes sense that they would do it again.
Um, I see Brother Williams is back. So, uh, uh, Brother Walker, tell us a little bit about your position in the organization and exactly what your well, how this election has actually either helped or hindered your uh, role within the Black community.
Rephrase that question for me. Sorry.
I'm basically asking what is your position and how has this election affected, your influence, within the community, or how has your programs uh, been
Oh,
able
okay.
to?
About my organization, Umoja.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Um, the election hasn't done anything um to hinder us. We're very local based. So Umoja, it means unity. We are building a republic, so we are growing into the roles that are needed to be providers for people instead of asking for provisions. So we're learning agriculture, we're learning woodwork, we're learning leadership skills, we're we're imparting that onto others. We are finding educated people that can help us spread knowledge towards the people. That way we can provide what we need. You know, you need to build something, you learn how to build it. You need to get food, you learn how to grow it. Defend yourself, and then we're just building. We're just building right now. We're in a phase where the agriculture is doing really well. Our plan is to we want to centralize everything. I believe that districts are better ruled by districts by themselves, community ran. So if you have the transportation, your agriculture, and your public safety, and you centralize it in each district, then I feel like everything will work out better than how it goes now when you have one area making decisions for a large area where not all their lifestyles really coexist with the other ones.
So when you talk about agriculture, are you talking about like the small neighborhood places that we used to see? For instance, I know in New York and some places back east, they used lots, where houses had been torn down, and people planted neighborhood gardens and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. Is this the type of program that you're talking about? And when you talk about trade, are you talking about, like handmade materials, or are you talking about mass-made materials?
Both, honestly. I'm friends with my friend Mustafa, and his dad owns the Black Contractors Coalition out here, and he trains people to start working in construction, those type of things, and that's something I want to start utilizing soon to spread that information to our people and get them educated in that. That way they can build. That way they can do things like that. So things like that, and even the smaller things. Um, we want to be able to provide all sorts of crafts, like trade. We want to start our own workforce. We want to encourage people to start their own businesses and to work on being successful and being able to employ others. We want to build our workforce where we can get people that are homeless and do either have skills or can be trained to have skills and get them back into a workforce so that they can provide for themselves as we provide for them. Um, if we build our own workforce, if we take care of everyone in between the youth and the elderly and those without, then things will go better. If we can support the farmers in a way where they don't have to sell off to any corporation or anything, and they can just support the community as the community supports them, then everything can be more centralized.
Um, well, one thing I see Brother Williams is back on. I don't know whether you want to take this or Brother Williams, but I think I mentioned during my first contact with the Panther Party, I was doing a bit in Milan, Michigan, federal penitentiary. And one of the things that I I noticed, and this was back in the '80s, that the Panthers that we reached out to, and this was in Detroit and also in Ohio, because I was from Ohio, but the Panthers that I reached out to uh, were willing when people came home from the penitentiary, they were willing to give them uh, what we called then jobs for tax breaks, which simply meant that if you hired a convict when he came home, your company was given a certain amount of tax breaks, and also uh, to help you reintegrate into the community instead of going back to the things that you had done before. I think one of the classes that I took was in radio and TV. Of course,
Okay.
radio and TVs have changed a lot then, but the the point being is that I was at least taught the basics, so that when I got out and got within the neighborhood, I could tell the neighborhood guy, well, you can hire me, and you can also get a tax break. How had the Panthers been able to uh, integrate any programs for uh, the people that are coming out from being incarcerated, and a lot of them are just actually discontented within the system. They come home ill prepared. I mean, just imagine, like uh, I did 5 years from 1977 to 1982. And when I came out, people were doing things on computers. Before that, you had a bunch of cards that the computer had to read. There was, I mean, imagine a guy coming out after doing 10 years, and all of a sudden he sees a laptop or a smartphone. Uh, how are we doing things to help those brothers that have actually been passed up by technology by being locked up?
Well, let me answer that a little bit, and I just answer that by just dealing with one of our partner chapters in Dallas, Texas. In fact, our chief of staff that was in the new Black Panther Party down there, Brother Syke, Terry Brown, he was locked up for 17 years and got out of prison
Oh
two
my
years
goodness.
ago. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
He got out 2 years ago. But the thing about it is when he got out, he hit the ground running. Reason being, when he was locked up, he took advantage of any and every educational program he could. In fact, when he got out, the thing about it is just kind of like what you said, technology had kind of surpassed what he was used to, but at the same time, he had being a Panther, and he was actually very instrumental in starting a chapter in prison in Texas. So from that standpoint, he was an aggressive go-getter. And what we typically do, we don't specifically have a program here in San Diego, but what we do is network with other organizations that do work with, programs and jobs, and connect people with the right businesses that are willing to give folks fresh out of prison an opportunity. One of those organizations that I know even help with getting people's records expunged would be Pillars of the Community. In fact, they did a broadcast, I want to say 2 nights ago, with an attorney going over, knowing your rights and just giving real good information to the community in regards to how to deal with being confrontations with police officers, and preventing yourself from getting arrested, and just good information on that. And so what we do believe in, and this kind of goes back to what Devon works on with Emoja, is working with the community of people and networking the best we can that way to help folks that are, come up out of prison to land in decent opportunities. So by us being real community oriented, I think it's just, hey, we really like to have our ear to the street and work with just various people and various opportunities that are able to give folks a chance. And so we just rely upon a lot of our networking skills as it goes with that.
Okay. Anything else you wanted to add there, Brother Walker?
No. I'm glad you asked me that question. It made me start to think about things, and I'm glad Mr. Warren had the answers, as he always does.
Yeah, it's thinking of Panthers as a grassroots organization, and knowing how, uh, like you said, I mean, I can imagine that after 17 years, I mean, I did 5, and uh, and that was, then I stayed out a couple of years and went back and did another 5, and like I said, it just seems like, you stood still. I mean, you could see things on television and stuff like that, but as far as you actually being able to work them, and being able to, people think that, just because, you've been incarcerated, that they've also locked up your sense of pride. But you still want to be a man. You still want to have that sense of self-esteem, and you want to feel that you're a viable link in the community. And if you're not, then you resort back to what you know best,
Right.
which is not always best for the community. But when one is in a self survival mode,
Settlement.
you're not really thinking about the community. Brother Williams, as someone a little older, what do you think about that concept?
Well, what I think, again, I would refer right back to brother brother Terry Brown in his situation when he got incarcerated. The reason why he ended up doing 17 years is because he actually got a murder charge. And so from that standpoint, he acted, and what was present about his situation is that he was a part of a gang, and from that standpoint ended up dealing with gang violence. And in the result of the gang violence, he actually pleaded self-defense. And believe it or not, he because of his testimony and the way it went, he was given probation, parole. He was given parole. And through that parole, it just basically they hit him with like a 20-year uh, parole sentence. So it wasn't that he did a lot of time up front for the murder, but what happened was when he violated his parole, they threw the book at him, and that's where he ended up doing that extensive amount of time. But the thing about him, and the thing that we talk about, is going into the prison system as a Panther. He did have the benefit of knowing what it means to not allow your spirit to be broken. And that is one of the things that he taught while he was in prison, and on the prison units, is is how to not allow your situation and your condition to be the end of your life, to be what to write your life story. And so he rose to the occasion and like I said, educated himself even more to the point to where he became an asset in prison. He became an asset to his fellow inmates and help to uplift them, help to grow them, help to mature them to a point to where they would not allow their current situation to destroy them, and that they become more of a crook, more of a criminal, more of the element that got them locked up in the first place. And so one of the things about being a Panther, one of the things we work toward doing it when we also talk about empowering the people, it has to do with the mental liberation that we must encounter and that we must reach our people through. A lot of our people just are mentally enslaved, and we're not even talking about physical oppression. We're just talking about being beat down and allowing yourself to play the victimization role. So that same mentality continues and oftentimes is magnified when we find ourselves incarcerated. So we have to revert back to the revolutionary spirit of liberation and understand that our minds have to be liberated first and foremost. Once you have a liberated mind, once you see the value in yourself, once you move beyond allowing yourself to be victimized by a mentality of I would refer to it as being domesticated and being oppressed in terms of your individualization. Once you're able to move past that, then typically doors can open up for you, because it's about perception in the first place. We're faced with a difficult situation, and it's like one of the things that I would often tell people, talking about the 33 strategies of war, which is a book written by Robert Greene. He talks about how we must basically uh, make ourselves strong through adversity. So by making yourself strong through adversity, that basically means learn how to take a loss, learn how to take a bad situation and learn from it. And it kind of goes back to the concept of taking lemons and making lemonade. We have to think on that level no matter what challenges we're facing. And as Black people, we have always in this American decadent society have been oppressed. Are we going to rise up through that adversity, or are we going to let that situation beat us down? Well, we, the Black Panther Party, feel that we must stride through our adversity. We must stride through the pains, tribulations, and problems that we face. On the show before, I know I mentioned James. I talked about suffrage, and from that standpoint, when you talk about suffrage, we talk about recognizing that our people must not look at our condition as being a negative, but look at it as being something that we can rise beyond. Look at it as being a situation just like here recently in 2020, when
Mhm.
a good percentage of the white population started experiencing the loss of jobs. Well, what that did is open up a lot of the the floodgates in terms of getting them to recognize the experiences that Black people face on a day-to-day basis. And in doing so, it helped to empower us by exposing a lot of the things that we've done and had to deal with all the time, which helped lead to an influx of Panther membership, which helped lead to an influx of our people wanting to take this time and opportunity to learn more about liberating their mind and learn more about making themselves a better person. So the same thing to me goes right back to being incarcerated. You got to do one or two things. Either you're going to rise up to the occasion and find ways to make yourself greater through your adversity, or you're going to crumble and fold. And I, for one, is believe that we must rise to the occasion, that we must be able to see how we can face up to these challenges and make this place better. And so I'm always trying to look for solutions, no matter how grim the situation may be.
You want to add anything to that, Brother Walker? I thought we had. I think we said Brother Walker there.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. About the 17 years, again, it just really just makes me think about solutions towards towards what you're posing, because something like that hasn't really crossed my mind at the moment. Um, but it just brings to head that the solutions that are rolling in my head about programs that can be created, and just the spark that makes me think about looking at what is going on, what programs are already done, because the Panthers already have that sort of program, and to expand on it, and just to see how many other people are actually aware of that and working towards that in the community.
Uh, Brother Williams, I guess both of you can answer this. We have a few minutes left here. What are the goals of the party in 2021? Do you have any keynotes or any specific goals that you have set for this year?
Yes, I do, and I think I kind of spoke on that before, but let me just kind of go right back into it. One of our major goals is for us to expound on just the community educational piece that we want to get our people to gravitate around. When people think of the Black Panther Party, unfortunately, often they typically think of either us being a security force, or they think of us, from the standpoint of protesting. And what I want to do is, help to bring more awareness to the fact that the Black Panther Party is what? A Black Panther Party. We have operated and always operated as a political apparatus and a political education apparatus. Our biggest thing really goes back to getting our people to become more politically astute and more aware of what it means to deal with different levels of government. And so from that standpoint, we just kind of want to expound on our operation of getting our people to be more politically conscious and more politically aware and more involved in making our community better by raising up within the ranks of our own people proper candidates that can operate from the political realm, as well as getting the people themselves to be more involved in the overall process of governing self, the overall process of unifying a community, like what happens with Emoja, the overall process of developing co-ops, which is like what happened with Emoja, the overall process of developing community gardens, the overall process of getting the people to want to work amongst each other in order to create and circulate the dollar within the community. And as we
Hmm.
do that, we will find that majority of the solutions that we need, we can find amongst each other.
Yep.
It's just that we've been so dysfunctional in terms of our ability to work with one another, our ability to recognize how everything that we need actually can and does exist within our communities. We just need to build those branches to work together. And it goes right into the saying, and I talk about this several times in regards to just some of the things that the past president Trump was so key on, and that was creating polarity. When you create polarity, what you do is you divide the people amongst themselves, and you find reasons to turn one person against the other. So when we start looking and amplifying our differences, then that causes us to basically look at each other as enemies. And if we look at each other as enemies, then obviously we're not going to see the benefit or the value in working together. And when you have a people that operate from that type of vicious mentality, then of course there's not going to be common unity amongst the different people in the community. Of course, people are not going to know how to work and pull their resources together, which allows corporate greed and capitalism from that standpoint, and fascism from that standpoint, to magnify. And it allows people to further find themselves victim of codependency. And so one of our major goals, going back to that, is to educate our people and to implement a community program to where we are having an ongoing political educational apparatus that is bringing that type of awareness more to the people and empowering the people through their educational awareness and their political awareness.
Uh, One other thing I have to ask you, Brother Williams, and this is on a note, a very sad note that I had forgot to ask you about earlier, but on a program earlier, you were talking about a young brother who had lost his life. I believe it was the day before Thanksgiving. Has there been any progress in the investigation as to the death of this young brother?
I do need to follow up on that situation. So let me plan to next week have that brother on and have him update us as a collective on the situation. One of the things we have to know, especially when it comes to El Cajon, is that it is a constant fight, and oftentimes there are more victims in the community through either police brutality or harassment than what most of us know. Typically, only certain cases are given the limelight, depending on the type of evidence, depending on you know the attorney power. And unfortunately, I believe this is one of those cases that they're just going to have to keep getting pounded and hitting the pavement and brought to light. And so I do know that they're still dealing with that from a legal standpoint, and that's usually the first thing you have to turn to is establishing, and unfortunately oftentimes we try to find a pro bono, or even if possible deal with ACLU in terms of trying to get justice, legal justice, which helps to incorporate within community awareness and protests, and getting it dealt with from that perspective. So I'll see if I can get Brother Tariq back on next week to dive more into that situation.
Yeah, I just don't want the young brother to be forgotten.
Yes,
Uh,
sir. I
so,
appreciate that, James.
why don't we start with young Mr. Williams and uh, give us your final thoughts and your final word for the night, and then Brother Robert, you can give us our send off.
Go ahead, Devon.
Um, my final what? I'm sorry.
Your your final thoughts. Anything you might want to convey to the audience, or just
Oh,
anything you might want to get off your chest.
um, I would like to implore anyone listening to get more involved in their community, see what's going on in their community, see what's wrong with their neighbors, see what their neighbors need, and just build onto that, build on from that, and reach out to see how you can help others and how others can help you, and that will better solidify your community. The better you know about your community, the better you can help it, and the better it can help you.
Yes, sir. I do agree with that. Thank you very much for your time, and
Thank you.
we appreciate your thoughts. And hope to have you back on the program too. Always glad to hear from young people.
Yes,
Uh,
sir.
Brother Williams?
Yes, sir. Well, I would like to just end with basically one of the things I want to amplify that Devon is involved in again is the community organization called Emoja, and that's in City Heights. And they also have, a community garden that they operate. They have community classes that go over health, fitness, and nutrition. And they operate from an area called the Power Through Fitness Gym, and this is an outside gym that's also attached to the community garden.
Black
And I
owned.
just want to invite people to be able to come out and participate in how it is to have a community based organization that is centered around nutrition, centered around pulling people together of all various races, together to work out, to learn more about how to co-op with one another, to learn more about uh, fresh organic gardening, and how to build compost, and everything that goes into being able to supply your own elements for your family. One of the staples of the Black Panther Party has always been the food program, and through that food program, we like to emphasize the fact that if you want to have a healthy, mature mental capacity, then you need to have put proper food in your body. So it's super important that we recognize the importance of nutrition, because as we get into academics, as we get into all of the things that go into having a better lifestyle, whether it be mental, physically, or spiritually, you have to start at the cornerstone, and that's having a good diet. So Umoja emphasizes that in the community there in City Heights. And just so from that standpoint, I wanted to bring Devon Walker on to just be a living testament of the power that you have when you operate in that capacity.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I thank both of you, and as usual, brother, we will make sure that we get the proper amount of time in, and we hit subjects that are very vital to our Black community. So I thank both of you for your time, as well as our audience. Encourage people to come and listen to our podcast, and make sure that we are a force also within our community. I thank both of you, brothers, and Brother Williams. I look forward to talking to you next week.
Yes,
And
sir.
hopefully, you'll, as always, you'll be able to bring on some young, very politically wise, as well as experienced young people that you've helped within our community. So we thank the Panthers for all their efforts, and uh, just this is actually to let people know that the Panthers are still here and still a voice in San Diego. So I appreciate you, gentlemen, and thank you very much for showing up.
Yes, sir. All
So
power to the people.
Power to the people.
all power to the people. Have a great night, everyone. We look forward to talking to you next week at the same time. Have a great night.
See, Mr. Watt.